Hello, hello, Senator Ramos.
Hello, Citizens Union.
Hello, Senator Ramos.
How is everybody on this very gloomy day?
Oh,
Hanging
not
in
that.
there.
And the whoa, I need to make myself smaller.
Oh,
Sorry. That's a lot. That's a lot of face for me. I like seeing everybody.
Thank you for joining us, Senator Ramos. Appreciate it. I'm John Avlon, the Chairman of Citizens Union. Thank you for submitting your questionnaire and taking the time to interview with us. And you know this is being recorded. And you've got, I think, 15 or 16 members of our board here, many of whom have backgrounds in government. And we are eager to ask you questions and hear your answers. Obviously, you know, Citizens Union is New York's oldest good government group. We've been fighting for reform for over a century. Our core issues are fair and open elections and honest, accountable government. And we would ask you, just because we've got a lot to get through, to try to keep your answers to around 2-3 minutes per question. I'll kick things off. Obviously, we are very focused on enacting a new reform era in New York. And I want to know why you consider yourself the best mayoral candidate to usher in that era of reform, noting that in your questionnaire, you are in favor of even your elections, one of our priorities, but opposed to open primaries, another one of our core priorities.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Citizens United for hosting this conversation and taking the time to do all of the advocacy work that you do. I know you love this city just as much as I do and are as deeply committed to its future. I'm Jessica Ramos. I'm running for mayor of New York City because I believe that our city deserves leadership that matches its energy, its ambition, its resilience. I think that for too long, we've been asked to wait for everything that we need, for safer streets, for affordable housing, for fair wages, for true accountability. And I don't think New Yorkers are very good at waiting. We hustle, we build, and we fight for what we know is possible. And that's the type of spirit I have brought to public service throughout my 20-year career. I started as city council staff during the Bloomberg administration, left to work in the labor movement, was then appointed to the de Blasio administration, at first to round out the team that delivered on universal pre-K, and I was later director of Latino media for the city. And I resigned to run for office, where I've now been senator for 7 years, chairing the labor committee throughout my entire tenure. I believe I've been relentless in my drive to get things done and to cut through bureaucracy and to put our communities first. I've championed transparency reforms when it comes to the MTA and NYCHA specifically, but have always been a big believer and champion for a lot of the transparency that I have seen as lacking in this current mayoral administration, quite frankly, especially as it pertains to the NYPD. And now I'm ready to bring that fight to City Hall. I want to prioritize housing as a human right. I want us to invest deeply in public safety and in every sense of that word, and make our city more livable, more affordable, and fairer for every New Yorker. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you, and I am happy to answer your questions, and hopefully I'm able to win your support.
And why do you think you would be the best mayor for a reform agenda, Senator?
Well, there are many things that set me apart as a candidate. Definitely my lived experience as a born and raised New Yorker is far different than some of the front runners in this race right now. I wasn't born with, a well-known last name. I don't have rich parents. I'm a girl from Queens who grew up to believe that I could give back to my city and make it a better place for my children. I'm a mother of 2 teenage boys, so I experienced the city through their lens as well. And I therefore also want City Hall to be much more accountable to New Yorkers, and want us to have a much more transparent process when it comes to budgeting. I do believe that there is a lot of waste to root out. And I say that as a progressive Democrat who wants to hire the city's first chief revenue officer. I also happen to be the only candidate who's already had a desk at City Hall and has been able to see how the interagency work happens in order to actually implement a lot of the work that needs doing. I've been a legislator. I've been in the executive office and believe that I understand how to start doing the job starting on day one.
Thank you. David?
Hi, I'm David, boy from Queens, still in Queens. So City Hall has seen a surge in investigations, in indictments, resignations related to ethical misconduct. In your view, what is the biggest weakness in city government that has allowed all this to happen? And then what specific policies would you implement to combat corruption and ensure your administration remains ethical and transparent?
Well, I think our election system is really designed for the candidate with the greatest access to money, the greatest access to capital, to do well, regardless of merit, regardless of integrity. And so I believe that it has paved the way for a mayor like Eric Adams, who's championed cronyism, no-show jobs, and nepotism. I always, one of the jokes that I try to land is always I haven't promised any of my sisters any jobs, or anyone I've ever gone to school with or anything like that, or anyone for that matter. The idea is to have open job interviews for each and every position, even for those who want to keep their job. But we've misspent a lot of taxpayer dollars accounting for Eric Adams's cronyism. And then there's a lot to say also about settlements that the city ends up having to pay, especially pertaining to the NYPD, and others. I mean, I'm someone who has supported doing away with qualified immunity at the state level, because I believe no one is above the law. And, at a time when so many have lost trust in our public institutions, doing the right thing in this way can go a long way into rebuilding or building that bridge with New Yorkers so that they can believe that their government can be good. I believe that, my role as mayor would largely be as an administrator and want to make sure that every New Yorker feels good about paying your taxes, because that you're going to get back a quality, efficient service. When it comes to paving our roads, when it comes to sanitation, when it comes to public safety, and certainly when it comes to education, from childcare all the way through CUNY.
So thanks for your response. So I've heard some potential things. I said no nepotism, jobs, interviews that are open and things like that. What are some of the other reforms that you would do so that we could ensure that your administration remains ethical and transparent?
Well, I think when it comes to budgeting, in the age of technology, and I was actually surprised Eric Adams has not kind of come around to this notion, but in the age of technology, budget numbers are readily available to the vast majority of people. And so the antiquated budget dance that takes place is really, to me, a waste of time, and something that should be left in the past, where the mayor proposes cuts, then he restores some of those cuts, depending on how the politics have played out. I mean, we know, the general public knows, and certainly folks like you at Citizens Union knows, where the money is, how it's being spent, how it's being misspent. And I think we can do a better job of having financial accountability through not only the first deputy mayor and OMB, who shouldn't be so far apart from in numbers from the IBO, but actually even hire a chief revenue officer to help us creatively generate more revenue for a city that can't exactly levy taxes for itself. The other thing I'd like reform on and more transparency on is property taxes. To me, that's at the crux of our inequality, especially as it pertains to housing and a barrier to building more affordable housing in New York City. And I believe that if we were just simply to comply with the law and conduct property value assessments correctly, we would actually generate at least around $2 billion extra for our city. And I believe that it would, again, allow us to have more transparency with homeowners and property owners across the city.
Thank you. Richard?
Hi, Senator. Hi. Nice to see you. I don't live in Queens now, but I did at one time.
Oh yeah, where?
Forest Hills, Yellowstone.
I love all these Queens connections. Wonderful.
So I want to pick up on two things.
Hill does not.
One, in your answer to David, you said that you would be an administrator. Part of the job of the mayor is to be an administrator. You have an impressive legislative track record, but obviously running a state senate office is not the same thing as running the biggest municipal government in the country. So tell us what makes you well suited for being the boss of over 300,000 people of running the city government. And I have to add one thing. This question was always on our list, but it got bumped up higher because candidly, we were a little distressed that your questionnaire came in basically barely before you. And also in your opening remarks, you said New Yorkers don't like to be kept waiting. That probably describes us as well. So that, in some sense, this question takes a little more salience for us now in light of the bumpiness of getting your questionnaire. But tell us a little bit about your management background, your management skills, and how you plan to manage the city government.
Well, that's fair. And so I've heard. To be perfectly candid, we have been overwhelmed with questionnaires. And a lot of the questionnaires are quite overlapping. But nevertheless, now as we're in the crunch period, marching very carefully towards June, there's a lot to juggle. So I apologize. We do get a lot of questionnaires, and it's a task within and of itself, and we like to be thoughtful and thorough. You're right that running a Senate office is nowhere near running a city with so many agencies. It's good that there are deputy mayors and of course commissioners to help do that work. What I do take great pride in being a senator is to be a senator with one of the lowest turnover rates in the state legislature. People on average stay with me from 2 to 4, even 6 years. And so I like to believe that I have always led a healthy work environment in which not only, you don't have to worry that I will touch employees without consent, unlike some candidates in this race. And I have held several jobs in government, unlike other candidates in this race, including in the executive office that I am seeking. So I am privy to the level of work and management that this requires. I take very seriously the responsibility I'm asking for and the promotion I'm asking for. And this is why I want to make sure that as someone who yearns for our city to be the best, that we're actually interviewing and hiring the best, and then letting those people actually do their jobs. Which is, I believe, also a management skill that is somehow missing from our current leadership.
Haida.
Senator, how are you? Nice to see
Hi,
you.
Haida. How you
How
doing?
you
Good.
I'm well. As a girl who now lives in Queens, but born and bred in the Bronx, glad to see you. So you mentioned that you have both experience on the city council side and on the mayoral side. So I just wanted to ask you a question. So most of the recent conflicts between the mayor and the city council has centered on questions of like authority, budget allocation, implementing laws, approving appointments. Do you believe the current balance of power between the mayor and the council is appropriate?
Well, you know, our executives, both city and state, have exponentially more power over the budget than their respective legislatures. And, you know, I do believe there are initiatives in the city council that as mayor, I would be much more supportive of, like participatory budgeting, which is a concept that I like and that we could do more of. That shouldn't necessarily be optional depending on the council member, but, you know, put more power in the people's hands to decide what it is that we do with our tax dollars in terms of prioritizing capital projects and such. So I definitely want to have a much better working relationship with the city council. I mean, there's definitely checks and balances, right? That we offer each other, and certainly the council, especially in approving of the people who are hired to lead all of the different agencies and the deputy mayors and such. But I really want to be able to work with the council members and champion a lot of their very good forward-thinking ideas. I think actually another thing that distinguishes me as a candidate, I'm really the only candidate that's been talking a lot about including technology or injecting technology into the way the city conducts its business. I mean, 311 can be much more streamlined. 911 dispatchers need a lot more support. You know, having an app so that New Yorkers who need help and services can really just not have to fill out so many applications, and for us to use technology to deduce who qualifies for presumptive eligibility for things like fair fares, so we could reduce fare evasion, is something that's, I think, really important to me. So I'm hoping that with whomever ends up being the next speaker of the city council, I can really hopefully bring the city into a new, much more prosperous era where we're actually tackling our crises because we not have enough of them instead of creating new ones.
And do you believe, how would you forge that relationship with the new speaker?
Well, I mean, it depends on who it is, but no matter who it is, the idea would be to figure out where our common ground is and identifying where we don't have common ground and we have bridges to build, and then figuring out how we get there. I mean, I think that's actually in that approach is where my union training comes in, you know, where we certainly as groups of workers want, you know, better benefits, better pay, better respect from the boss, but at the end of the day, you want the boss to do well, or else, you know, you're not going to get a better contract. So that is the type of relationship, you know, to paint an analogy of sorts, that I would expect to have with a city council.
And do you think the council, and then I'll just follow up, should have advice and consent on some of the mayoral appointees, or?
I do. I think they should approve people who are nominated. I mean, the deputy mayor thing is interesting because it does not happen in that way at the state level. It's really specific, or, you know, particular to the city level, because ultimately I should be able to hire who I believe is going to do the best possible job as it relates to the chemistry with me and my team. Right? Would be my job as CEO to keep to you know, present a shared vision to be enacted by my deputy mayors, and then it would be my immediate team's job to keep those trains running. Should the city council have a say in that? I mean, I think traditionally, given the history of corruption of New York City, it probably stems from just making sure that it's someone who has integrity and good character. So I understand where it comes from. I don't know that I would want to do away with it, but I mean, I hope to be trusted that I will appoint people who will hold muster and be able to be approved and meet those thresholds.
Great, thank you.
Since we started a bit late, we have room for one or two final questions. I suggest, Christina, do you want to ask your question?
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Christina.
What will be your approach in engaging with the Trump administration and President Trump, especially in areas where the federal government may try to pressure New York in immigration, law enforcement, other areas?
They already are, Christina. Christina, I have very serious issues in my district right now. Donald Trump and his administration have taken away $300 million in cloudburst flood mitigation funding, $100 million of which impacts my district alone. We were really, ravaged by Hurricane Ida. President Biden came to visit because my district was ground zero for the devastation. We lost a dozen neighbors who perished, who drowned in basements because of our affordable housing crisis. So I think my tenor with Donald Trump will be very serious. I don't know to what extent we can work together. I want to be able to do that if and when possible. But I also want to have the strongest arsenal of leverage to negotiate and play chess, so to speak, with Donald Trump. And I've started to lay that groundwork as a senator now. Actually, a few weeks ago, with Assemblyman Michael Lasher, we introduced a bill called the Recourse Act. And the Recourse Act is designed to compel the comptroller to tabulate all of the money that is owed, or rather, I should explain it this way. If Donald Trump were to unlawfully withhold funding from New York, that means that it requires a judicial order to happen. Then we would be able to withhold the same amount of money in taxes that we send the federal government in the form of grant payments and such. So, I think we have to show that we're unafraid to stand up and really protect the funding that we need, so that there's a continuity of services and that we are staying on track to deliver the infrastructure upgrades, transit upgrades, and the like that is necessary. The other one that I fear tremendously is if he were to take away Title I funding from our public school system. We're talking about funding for our most vulnerable student population. So that's why I believe we need to be ready to play smart. Sometimes there's definitely times, and this is sometimes where I diverge from my more progressive colleagues. There's times to throw rocks, but there's times when that's not the most effective strategy, even if it feels good. The idea here is to make sure we're protecting our money.
John, do you want to close us off?
Well, Jessica, Senator, I want to thank you for taking the time, and these questions, the answers have been illuminating. I want to see, just to give you a chance to have a concluding statement, again, focusing on reform. And I would like you to elaborate a little bit on open primaries and your opposition to them.
Yes, you did bring that up, and I didn't address it. Well, I am someone who has always thought that primaries are about determining, who the nominee for a specific political party is by definition. Do I want Republicans to have a say? Would they be able to push a vote for them to pick the worst possible Democratic candidate? Are we doing that on our own already? I don't know. I increasingly find myself disillusioned by parties in general, and really would want to see less of a polarization in our politics, and more so a come to Jesus in the middle of it all. so that common sense prevails over dogma. That is what I identify with the most. And should I just go into saying, unless there are any follow-ups to that, which I'm happy to answer, let me just say thank you to each and every one of you for the service you give our city and your respective organizations and your respective work. I, like you, am very proud of the work I have done in serving this city. I pride myself in being a very serious legislator, sometimes to a fault, and want people to really see the love, dedication, and focus I have for the future of our city and the work that I can do for you. Ultimately, what I'm asking you is to hire me and help me be a vessel or the vehicle to really bring about the city that we all want and deserve. I've never run for office to make a buck, like many. I run for office because I believe in good government, and I believe in the good of the city, and I believe that if we actually tackle the crises we're facing, whether it's climate change, the affordable housing crisis, the childcare crisis, the elder care crisis, the mental health crisis, we have so many crises to address that it should really be driving the job creation in our economy if we actually were focused in doing those things. And perhaps that could usher in a return to when New Yorkers really just needed one good job to be able to provide for their families and have some peace of mind.
Okay.
So that is my interest in having your support and your endorsement. I'm not scared to be your partner and bring about the level of transparency and good faith that people should be able to have in their government, because that's not how I came into office. And that's certainly never the legacy that I want to leave for my children and for my community. So thank you all. This really is in many ways a vindication of Queens. Please don't judge us by Donald Trump or Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams. We are much better than any of those three men, who I largely see as the same person at times. And I really hope to be able to count on your support.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Fine.
Much
Really
appreciated.
appreciate it. Thank you.